Hey guys, welcome back to the CC podcast. A person I recently met just asked me, how do I start a business? And I told him point blank, I said, you can't just start one. You have to learn how to own one because loving something and having a passion for something is different than building a business and helping people with whatever the product is. It's not the same thing. And the reason I bring this story up is because this past weekend, I was participating in a dragon boat race. Lorna is a part of a yoga studio, and the yoga studio has a team that goes into this race to donate to a few local charities. We're really tight with the yoga facility owner, so I'm a part of that team to help contribute and give back to the community there. And in being a part of the team, it's not just business owners, it's people who do yoga. So there were tons of people with different walks of life. And inevitably in conversations, you start bringing up what you do, what they've got going on in life. And as the conversation come up to me being a business owner and running multiple businesses, this is where the very first question, which almost everybody asks, is, "Oh, well, I've wanted to start a business. How do I start a business? I really love this." And I find I ask myself why I answer this question, I guess to start, because sometimes people ask it out of genuine curiosity, others ask it mainly just because they're being polite, and some people, very few people, ask it because they actually want to take action on their dreams. And the coaches and the practitioners that I speak to every single day, these are guys who are already well established business owners. They've taken the question, they've gone beyond. Now they're running a seven-figure business. Most of them 1.2 to 3.2 million dollar run rates. And as they build this business, the definition of what it takes to be a business owner really changes. And I've talked about in multiple episodes the idea of stepping into the founder mindset, the idea of transitioning from practitioner to CEO. But I want to bring this story up to really showcase what it takes to be a seven-figure business owner versus being someone who just wants to be self-employed. Because many practitioners call themselves entrepreneurs, but they are perfectly okay just being self-employed. They don't want a large team. They want to just work for themselves and maybe have one or two VAs. And they don't want to scale at a very large level. But there are people who are saying to themselves, I want to take myself to the next level. I want to continue to grow. And I need to know what that looks like or what the next steps are. So this conversation came up. We were in between heats, which is basically you do a race, they get you off the water, and then you're waiting for the results to come. So, but PS, we actually won first place in our division, and we were fifth place overall, which was really exciting. So, for a team that only practices once a year for this charity event, I was pretty impressed that we got first place in our division. So, in between these race heats, we're sitting down, we're having a conversation, and he talks to me about a couple of the skills that he has, one of them being IT and one of them being finance. And one of them is more a job that he's really good at. The other one is something that he has a passion for and that he likes to talk a lot about. And he was like, "Hey, how do I start a business in this, my passion?" And in going through that, it's really important that like in that moment already, I feel like that question is in an offset mindset. I don't want to say that it's a wrong mindset because it's not. It comes from a place of excitement, it comes from a place of fire. But the question is already looking into how can I generate money? How can I build this business that supports me? And it's not really asking the question like, how do I operate something that provides, that contributes, and that grows outside of just myself? The mindset that is involved in transitioning into a multi seven figure coach is the mindset that requires you to serve more than just yourself or just your family. Usually, the practitioners and the health coaches that I work with that have these really big businesses and really big teams are people who start with a large passion, a large why, and they're saying to themselves, how can I bring this to the world? How can I contribute outside of paying my bills, making an income, just providing for my family? It's how do I show up and contribute value to my clients? How do I ensure that I'm servicing not just the initial problem that that they're coming to me for, but also that I'm helping them transition through the entire journey of life. So that way, when they leave my care, they not only saw the result that they wanted, but they were able to actually have a full transformation and keep this as a lifestyle. So to start, it's really about what I call the kind of diner versus restaurant owner mindset. So as this little example here, There are a lot of people who love to go out to eat, and they are very big foodies, and they love going to restaurants, and they know all the wines, and they're food connoisseurs. But just because you love food doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be a good restaurant owner. There's a lot that is involved in running and owning a restaurant than there is in actually eating the food and knowing the food. So outside of just knowing the foods and the pairings and the tastings and loving to eat, owning a restaurant means that you have to have a fundamental understanding of a lot of different things. You have to know how to operate a team. You have to know how to operate inventory. You have to know how to, of course, have a run rate that's based off of food, not based on service, which means that you have to know how many people are going in and out of your restaurant at any given hour. You have to understand markups. You have to know expiry. So it's not just a matter of how well do I know the food that I'm eating? How well do I, or how much do I enjoy eating the food? How much do I enjoy drinking the alcohol? It's really about saying to yourself, like, am do I have the skills, the mindset, the capability, and the intention to run and own a restaurant? Most people who run and own restaurants never eat at their restaurants, and they never participate in the aspect of dining. They are focused on the aspect of building a business. A fine example, we have this chain that's in Canada for some of you who are American listeners and stuff like that, which is called Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons, I'm not going to call it a restaurant. It's a fast food place, but Tim Hortons has multiple people, and I know multiple franchisees, people who own multiple locations, who have never stepped in the foot of the facility once, who do not eat the food there, don't participate in drinking the coffee there, but are running a business that sustains itself, and they run multiple locations. The idea is an identity shift. At one point, they were the diner. Don't get me wrong. At one point, they saw it as an opportunity. They loved the product. They loved the service or the experience. And so they said to themselves, now I have to decide if this is something that I want to be a part of. So every single practitioner or health coach out there, you are in the dining zone right now. And being self-employed, if you're making anywhere between 350,000 to like I'd say maybe 485, so almost half a million a year. That's the self-employment range. This is you have 1 to 2 VAs, you're working probably about 65 hours a week. You've got anywhere from 75 to 110 clients, and the majority of it's one-on-one spots. This self-employed aspect is you doing all the work, you participating in the dining experience, which is consuming the income and consuming the revenue that is being brought into your business. There comes a point in time where you have to then decide, do I want to transition from consumption to now I have to transition into creation? I have to transition into management. I have to transition into operation. And with that, I stop the eating, I stop doing certain parts of the business so that way I can focus on things that's actually going to make a large impact and grow. As an example, a person who owns a restaurant is not sitting at the table with every single diner and saying to themselves, hey, what's your food? What's this? And they're having conversations. No, they're working the room. They're talking with the managers. They're going into the kitchens. They're making sure that the system runs super seamless so the diner, AKA your client, has a fantastic experience. If they're always talking to the client, if they're always the one serving the food, if they're always the one cooking the food, a restaurant owner can't possibly do all of those positions. And this is where you have to say to yourself, well, am I still operating in a diner's capacity or am I operating in a restaurant owner's capacity? So just because you love good food doesn't mean you're ready to run that restaurant. And the same goes for coaching. Most people love helping, but they don't want to do what it takes to actually build a real business around that. And this is the things that build a seven-figure business in health coaching and practitioner. No joke, it's these things. It's very core and it's a very common list that most people will just casually step over. The first is nurture and follow up. My goodness, the amount of coaches who are stuck underneath $1 million in business, and when they say that they don't have leads, I look into their system and they've got an email list of 2,000 that they haven't nurtured, that they haven't called, that they haven't followed up with, and I can get them 200 clients easy ASAP. That not having nurture is a fundamental aspect of building a seven-figure business. You have to nurture daily. You have to provide value daily. This is content. This is masterclasses. This is webinars. This is providing additional value or bonus trainings for your clients. You have to provide value because value upfront is what attracts leads, is what brings people into your world, and then it's what allows people to then be nurtured long term with whatever you have in your background or in your back end systems. Those two hand to hand or hand by hand, side by side? No. Hand holding? What is it? Hand holding, hand to hand, side by side, whatever. They're hand in hand. There we go. So connected hand in hand, those two together will help add anywhere from 200 to 250,000 in revenue if you do those consistently every day. Outside of that, another large part of building the business is having a really solid sales process. It's either having a sales team, it's either having self signups and registry links and automating your sales process, or it's you participating in the sales and having a team around you to help draw leads so you can close them. A basic sales process is what allows you to get a significant amount of close rate. It's what allows you to get the signups. It's what allows you to pre-qualify people, and it's what allows your business to sustain sales and leads. Is the lifeblood of any practice, especially because in the health industry, people are always finishing up with you. No matter how good you are as a coach, even if you get people to stay for 2.5 years and 4 years, like our clients do inside of C2C, there comes a point in time where people will transition. You've taught them everything, they're happy with their success, and they will transition away, which means that you have to have a solid process to fill those spots. Coaches who are in the diner area, who are self employed, who don't have a large team, 9 times out of 10, all of these systems are very loopy. It's in their head, it's not consistent. And so what happens is they spend a lot of time replacing the clients that finish up. So their business never grows. And that's why they have that ceiling cap of 110 people. And that's why they have that financial ceiling cap as well. Now, if you look at the coach who's transitioned into that point where he's like, hey, I'm looking to build a real business. I'm looking to scale this long outside of just me. One of the first things that they do is they offset the things that take up too much of their time that they're not good at. So if it's editing and clipping and capturing content, boom, they have a teammate do that. If it's hiring a VA or an admin full time, so then they can do the billing, the invoicing, and the onboarding, boom, they offset that. And they focus on the things that absolutely will grow the business, generating leads and sales. Now, when you get to a point in your business where you either have an assistant coach or you have other practitioners working with you, this is where you can even offload your lead generation and be okay with a lower amount of leads, or you hire people for sales and you hire people for signups, or you develop an automated system to do that. This is the foundations of building a seven-figure business. There's really nothing more to that. Sure, we could talk landing pages, we could talk CRM, we could talk automations, we could talk AI generation, we could talk about having managers and HR roles. And those things are just things that actually add bloat that help improve the rates of all of the other stuff. But the core stuff is always nurture, lead generation, sales, and then client retention was the last one that I didn't mention. If you are someone who is saying to yourself, I want to be the practitioner and health coach that takes my business past that, you have to now be looking at each and every one of those things and say, how can it do better without me touching it? That's it. And if you're still touching those 4 areas, you will never scale past those 4 points. You'll never grow because the reality is you're still attached to everything that you're doing. You're still eating at the table with the client instead of being the restaurateur that's building the business around that. Now, I want to use and share actually a little bit of the dragon boat racing because it was a really great example of the effectiveness of building a team. Okay, because there's more to just building a business than wanting to make more money or loving being a practitioner. You need to build a successful team, and that requires coordination and it requires pacing. So when it comes to the aspect of running this boat, for dragon boat racing. Like I said, we only practice once a year. We don't bother because it's for a charity event. Sometimes there's new team members. I've done it 3 years in a row, so I'm familiar with the way that some things work. But for the most part, everyone on the team is fairly green. And we always have a practice day before where we practice for an hour, hour and a half before we get onto the water. Now, when we go onto the water, we have a steers person. And the steers person at the back of the boat is effectively the business owner. It is the person running the ship. The steers person is the person who throughout the entire boat and throughout the entire process, they know what's going on. They have an understanding of every position on that boat. They can teach the position on every boat. They know how to do it just good enough for them to instruct it. And they know that they have to have these people do it. It is a 20-person boat. There is no way that that boat can run with 15 people or less. And that's been proven for dragon boating. Like you just go too slow. It's too difficult. You don't have enough people moving the boat. So 10 people on each side, a steers person at the back and a person drumming at the front is effectively the way that a dragon boat operates. So we had a full team. We sit down and the steers person takes charge immediately right away and says, we need to go through a couple of points. We need to go through and teach you guys how to start. We need to teach you how to be in sync with each other, which is how to create a system and a process and run your business so that way everyone works together. And then you need to be able to understand how to finish. And finish in dragon boat racing is, of course, crossing the line. But in this example here, it's actually either being able to sign a client up or get a result for a client. So at the end, the same process happens the same way every time. Through this, the steers person needs to have a vision. They need to know what it looks like to row well. They need to know what it looks like for the boat to be in sync. They also need to know what it's like to cross the finish line and what it's going to take to motivate the team to be able to get them. The steers person also knows that they need to teach a structure. So when we went on to practice, the first thing that our steers person did is she says, I just want you guys to row and get a feeling of what the hell's going on. And as we're rowing out there, we're slapping paddles back and forth against each other. It's awkward. We're feeling weird shifts in the boat side to side. And what she did as the leader was she got a vision of how the boat was operating before she started to make adjustments. This is where a good leader inside of a business is going to step in and it's going to say, hey, I'm going to hire a person. I'm going to teach them the understandings and the basics of the role. And I'm going to throw them in the water and see where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are. I'm going to see where in my process is clunky. And then I'm going to make adjustments and revisions. So just like she was going through that process, after about 5 minutes, she was like, stop. Here's what I love. I love that rows 2 and 3 were really in sync. I love that seats 5 and 6 did X, Y, and Z. And then she's like, and here's what I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that the boat was rocking side to side because you guys are out of sync. You're not working together. And this is where she really took charge as the boat steers person. And she said, here's what I want you to do. She gave really clear, concise instructions on how the boat was going to row, when we were going to row. She gave us the indicator as to when to speed up and when to speed down. And she gave us all of the audible cues so we understood. And 2 to 3 runs through, guess what? We had it fine-tuned and it was only 15 minutes into the practice. We were rowing as a team. We knew exactly what we needed to do and everything was self-led. Now, here's the thing. She can only do that from the back of the boat. She can't steer the boat. She can't control the side to side motion. She can't be the person who sees the finish line if she's at the front of the boat looking at everybody else rowing herself. That doesn't work. So she had to position herself to the back of the boat, be the one who was not doing the rowing, who was not doing the work, who was not inside the business, and she then became the visionary of that boat to carry on with the positivity, the words of wisdom, the instruction in order for us to be able to get there. So A seven-figure business owner is someone who understands that they are the steers person. And every single time at the beginning, you're not going to be the steers person because guess what? You don't have a large team. But the more and more people you start to bring on, the more processes and systems you start to bring inside your business, the farther and farther you get to the back of the boat until you get to a point where you become the steers person. Now, there is someone at the front of the boat, and there's a drummer at the front of the boat that's supposed to keep time, that's supposed to keep pace. Our drummer was the instructor and the head owner of the yoga facility. And her job at the front of the boat was to listen to the steers person and relay the instructions. This becomes hiring your first manager. And I remember when I hired my first manager, they were effectively the person who was responsible to be the in between me and my team. The goal is to have them operate as much like you as they can to effectively take you out of the business and get you into a place where you can start being the visionary. Yes, you're still going to have to make corrections and adjustments. That being said, you still have a person at the front of the boat who's going to steer your business. So, in this aspect, it was Sarah. Her name was Sarah. She was sitting in the front. She was timing to the beat. She was a leader herself. That's why she was put in the position of the front of the boat. And because of that, each and every race, our time got faster and faster. We did a minute and 15 seconds, a minute and 14 seconds, then like a minute 13.9. And that's what took us to first place and what is going to take you to a successful business. So there's multiple stages to this. You start as the paddler. You start offsetting and filling in the paddle positions. You put yourself to the back of the boat where you're commanding the people and the processes and the systems and you're making adjustments. And then you assign and you bring someone in as a seven-figure business to help facilitate that team so that way you can start focusing on visionary stuff. Visionary is big power moves. It's new programs. It's new offerings. It's understanding what your 6 months looks like of marketing. It's bringing on new products. It's possibly hiring other people. It's creating affiliations and partnerships. All of the businesses we work with cannot do it unless they have these systems in place. There's no way that any of the clients inside of C2C that I work with got as far as like even Leslie, who's at 3.2 million. Like there's no way he could have built that if he didn't have his team of 16. There's no way. So through that process, you have to say to yourself, like, you have to understand, how is my boat going to run? What is the objective of bringing this boat there? Because that was another thing as well. We weren't just rowing to win. The focus was for us to stay in sync, and winning was a result of us staying in sync. We have to say to ourselves, what is it that our clients want? How can we provide the best service? How can we deliver a higher level of service to them? Now, through this process, this is where you're going to have to develop a whole new skill set, which is team management. Like as an example, in the boat, if everyone is paddling hard, but you're not aligned with direction, rhythm, and support, you're just going to be exhausting yourself. This is where people may build a big team, but then the team becomes a mess and then it falls apart. Or maybe people keep leaving the team and they have to keep filling positions because they're still stuck in the selfpreneur, in the entrepreneurship mindset of I have to be involved in everything. It has to be very difficult. And because they're always have their hands on and they're always trying to interfere with things, it feels like it is very exhausting. But through this process, it doesn't have to be exhausting. As a matter of fact, one of the really unique and special things I noticed being inside of that boat is when you have a team that you keep properly, that's in sync, that doesn't panic, and that you trust. You don't do a lot of managing. The people are 100% self-led. You trust in your systems, and you actually don't have to paddle hard because the momentum from the initial current, the momentum from your marketing and from your nurturing and from your lead flow actually starts to carry you. And then what happens is your hard paddling and your intense strides becomes long, slow, and intentional pulls that continue to carry the boat forward. This is what it takes to be able to build a seven-figure business. And I bring this up because When that gentleman asked me the question of, hey, how can I start my business? How can I build this? He wanted to build a business in service. And service-based business is actually, I would argue, one of the toughest services to be able to build. It's one of the most rewarding for sure, but it's one of the toughest services to build. It can be very emotionally heavy because you're not just selling products, you're holding someone's transformation and their life in your hands. Many of the clients that you're going to be working with, they're going to come in with pain. They're going to come in with trauma. They're going to come in with shame. They're going to come in with fear. And when they come in with these areas, you not only have a responsibility to build a business that's going to support you and support your team, but you're also going to have a responsibility to deal with your clients in a way that helps deal with all of those things. It demands a level of leadership, not just coaching. It's not enough for you to just be the coach and sell the program. It's not enough for you to go through the motions and you go up to the coaching calls. It's also not enough to provide their bare bones transformation. And then 6 months later, when they finish your program, they revert back to their lifestyle, the old lifestyle that they lived. You have to now step into leadership. You have to say to yourself, if I'm going to bring on a team, how can I empower these people so that way when they talk with my clients, they are more effective than I am? You really have to make your team more effective than you. Like the person that I have that helps me with my social media, they're way more effective. She's way more effective than me than I will be. She lets me know the things that are popping off and not. When it comes to my admin, there's no way that I could do the amount of work that my admin does because they are specialized solely in that thing. But I have to have a high level of trust. I have to know that that person is capable of being better than me. I also have to know that that person will make mistakes and that that's okay. That's just a part of business. Now, if you do this right, if you step into the leadership and not just get stuck in the coaching, the health industry and the service industry becomes the most fulfilling because the transformations are real. You end up helping people rewrite their future. And this is where the most common things that I see with seven-figure health practitioners is they are so invested in helping rewrite the future of their clients. They're so invested in being fired up every day in the transformations for these people that they want to figure out how to deliver the result faster, how to deliver the result better, how to provide more trainings. They have an obsession with making their clients so powered and so successful that their clients become large, empowering advocates of their brand. This is where you're going to get referrals every single day. This is where you're going to get people talking about your brand, where you're going to get speaking engagements, where you're going to have the opportunities to write books, where you're going to have the opportunities to speak at retreats. Because when you start showcasing to someone that you have the power to be a really big leader and you're growing every year and you're investing in yourself every year and you're transforming every year, this is where people get fired up and they want to be like you. They want to operate like you. They want to stay in your world. This is where you're not only affecting them, but you're affecting their children, their grandchildren, their partners, and everyone in their family. But in order for you to be able to do this, you have to take that transition. You can no longer be a diner sitting at that table. You got to ask yourself if you want to be the restaurant owner, if you actually want to be the person to build this business. And I can tell you something, most people don't. Most people don't. Okay. There's what I like to call an origin story trap that most health coaches and practitioners get into. Okay. They tend to go into health coaching, and this is especially true with personal trainers. They tend to go into the industry of health because they had a personal breakthrough or because they had a personal challenge. And yes, most health coaches start from passion and personal experience. Like for myself, I started because I had hormone imbalance, and my wife started her binge eating program because she was a binge eater. And that's fine. That's great to start with. But there gets to a point where your passion, where the reason is not going to be the thing that sustains the business. Because there gets to a point where your story, you end up transcending it. I was obsessed with my hormone story until I got my hormones balanced and stable, and my hormones haven't been out of whack since. Now, I don't really resonate with people who have hormonal imbalance because I'm 8 years past that at this point. To me, it no longer resonates with my story. It no longer resonates with the journey. And the same thing for my wife. My wife, when she started, was helping people at a really low level who are just like, ooh, I'm really stuck on eating Kit Kat bars and cookies. Now, my wife is at a point where she's like, I don't even resonate with binge eaters who eat unhealthy because I don't eat unhealthy anymore. And this is where we have to say, like, our passion is going to grow and change. Just like my passion started with hormones and grew into business, your passion is going to change too. So it's not enough for us to go on passion alone to sustain the business. This is where you have to look at the things that actually sustain a business. You need systems, you need structure, you need messaging that speaks to those who are ready to invest. You need to be talking to the person who is self led every single day, who's fired up and excited and already doing the work, who wants to work with you as a health professional. And for the systems, this isn't just, I need to have one nurture system and a landing page. You need to have a system for onboarding. You need to have a system for client delivery. You need to have a system for email nurture. You need to have a system for follow up. You need to have a system for when clients start falling off the program, how you get back on the program. You need to have a system for sales. You need to have a system for retention. And there needs to be then structure in your programs. How long does someone stay before they see a result? What program do they go to next? What is their next problem that they're going to have after they figure out the initial problem? As an example, if you're helping people with weight loss and you're saying to yourself, oh, well, the first structure is they just want to lose 20 pounds so that way their knee doesn't hurt. Cool. But then the next thing is, well, once they've lost the 20 pounds, maybe they should work on the knee strength. So maybe you need a knee program. And then after that, well, were they developing knee pain in the first place? Is it because they were long-term runners? Maybe they want to run again. So you start now predicting the problems and challenges of your clients, and you help them grow all the way through that. You need to have a structure that's in place for that. All of these things are things that you need in order for you to be able to sustain the business. Otherwise, you're going to burn out, and your passion is going to be that thing that makes you feel obligated to stay in the business, but doesn't actually bring you any business joy. So, your personal story is what brought you in, but it actually becomes your evolution as a leader that keeps you here inside of the business. So, as you transition from not just the practitioner and not just the coach, as you transition now into the CEO, here's what being that CEO, here's what being that restaurant owner really means. To start, it means delegation. And I did a whole episode on this. You have to start trusting others with everything, or trusting AI with things, or trusting a system with things. And you have to delegate and remove off of your plate as much as you can, still delivering a phenomenal service. Every person who is not making $1 million or above should stop right here. Don't do anything else other than delegating and the bare minimum of the foundation stuff that I said with the nurture, the sales, all of that. That has to be primary. But once you've mastered the delegation, now we have to go into decision making. And decision making ends up becoming based on the vision, not just the emotion. We're not just saying what makes me feel good in this moment, right? Am I just going to be the diner who keeps eating because I love eating? No, we have to say to ourselves, what is the vision long past this? Why did I open up the restaurant? Why did I open up the practice? What does it look like 10 years, 15 years from now? And now you have to make decisions on that. Do you switch from one on one to group coaching? You switch from individual sales calls to a self sign up link because it saves you time and it allows your clients to sign up faster. All of these things are very important because they're going to grow your vision a lot further. Then the next thing, it's saying no. Becoming a 7-figure business owner is saying no multiple times a day, every single day. Saying no to very exciting ideas that might, again, being a diner, ooh, another place to eat, versus I'm going to commit to my restaurant. I'm going to commit to being here every day, to growing this every day. We say no to opportunities that don't serve us. We say no to things that take our time. We say no to things that split our focus. We say no to the bad relationships or to the bad habits that no longer serve us. It was Will Smith, and I mean, some of you may have a love-hate relationship with this guy now, but it was Will Smith who said on a podcast I was recently listening to, like the difference between in school, like C to B and B to A is not just a grade. There's a totally different things. C to B is usually friends, it's usually habits, it's usually sleep, it's usually studying. B to A is usually practice, it's repetition, it's consistency, it's ownership. These things are things that you have to build up. And a large part of that is saying no to things that don't serve you in the moment. And then there's one more thing for seven figure business owners that they really, really focus on. The seven figure business owner, especially the people I work with inside of Coach to Coach, every single business owner that I work with inside of Coach to Coach knows their freaking numbers. You got to know your numbers and you got to own your numbers, not just know your offers and own your offers. And there are a lot of coaches who do this thing where they get really excited about an offer and they're just promoting stuff on whims. These are the people who are always just working for themselves. They don't know their signups. They don't know their close rates. They don't know how many leads they get per month. They don't know what posts or what podcast episodes are driving traffic to them. They don't understand the message that people are looking for. And because they don't own the numbers, because they're just focused on the offers, they never grow past and they end up getting in the cycle of replacing the same amount of people. Not the business owners I coach. Nope. The ones I coach inside of C2C, they freaking own their numbers. They know their close rates. They know that each and every month they might get anywhere from 56 leads to 212 leads. And they know of those, maybe 75 to 85 of them are going to actually fill out an application. Of those, maybe they have a 30% conversion rate from the application to a consult or from the application to a self sign up link. And they understand these things not because they have an obsession with the numbers, but because they want to continue to improve. And here's another one, which I bet you most of you listening don't know. Do you know the success rate inside of your programs? Because I can tell you, most coaches don't know the success rate inside of their programs. I had an 86% success rate for the first 4 years. And then the last 2 years of business, we changed to 92% success rate. There were very few people who failed our process. And my definition of fail was if I call you 6 months later, because we had a 6 month call and we had an 8 month call. If I call you 6 months later and you still are doing the things that you're supposed to do and you still have kept your results and you're doing well, that's a success to me. It's not just delivering the initial result. Now, most of you guys as coaches are very invested in selling the offer and in delivering the offer, but you're not very invested in did I give the result and did I actually do what I say I was going to do for the client? And so this is where a seven-figure business owner in health knows their success rates. They know how many people fall off. They know why they fall off. And that's because they care not just about the money that they're making in the team that they're running, but they care about the client and the success, and they care about the transformation process because they're invested through that whole thing. So all of this to say that when this gentleman asked this question, do I want to start a business? The question I put back to him was, if you're doing this because this is just a passion and you're really fired up, then keep it as a passion. But not every restaurant or not every diner is someone who should own a restaurant. And that's okay. Understand you being self-employed, understand you being someone who just wants to have a VA who's not going to make more than $1 million a year, who is going to be working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. a day, and maybe you have weekends off. If you want that and that's for you and that's where your passion lies, amazing. Not everyone is a good fit to be a seven-figure business owner. But if you're listening to this and you're saying everything that you just said from a seven-figure business owner, I resonate, I want to grow in this area, I know that I have the potential, then this is where you have to ask yourself, are you just enjoying the meal of your passion? Or are you learning how to run the kitchen, lead the staff, manage the costs, and scale your business? Because that's what it actually takes to run a seven-figure coaching business. And inside of the seven-figure coaching business, when you are ready to run the seven-figure coaching business, this is where you're going to have to look at a couple areas. So everyone inside of the C2C, the first thing that they do is they look to community because clients want to grow with you and they want to grow with each other. So we look at what does your community look like or do you have a community? The next is Well, what is your personal growth, right? Because clients will pay you to grow, and they pay to grow with a coach who's always evolving, who's always succeeding, who's always bettering themselves, who's always learning new knowledge, who's always investing in themselves. Then, of course, we look at your marketing. Like you have to learn client speak. You have to understand the language that your audience uses to describe their pain, but also to describe their desire. Because pain is a low level client, desire is a high level client. And this comes down to understanding the solution aware client. The solution aware client is someone who doesn't want education, they want results. So actually, you know what? I should probably do a podcast episode. Maybe I'll do that as the next episode, going through each one of those, like what it actually takes to run a seven-figure coaching business. But I wanted to speak to the mindset and the bare minimums that you need to be hitting before you start looking into the like community, the personal growth, the marketing, the understanding the solution aware, because all of these things are things that you can continue to build to bring up. So bringing it back to the guy who asked, like, how do I start a business? Now it's time to start asking the right questions. It's not, how do I start this? How do I make money? How do I make $3 million? It's not basic B stuff. And by the B, I mean basic business, not basic bit. It's who do I need to become to grow this? That's the first question you should be asking. The second question you should be asking is what kind of clients do I want to attract as I grow this? The final one is what kind of life do I want to live alongside this business? If you can answer all three, then at this point, you're ready to take your business to seven-figure level. And if you're at seven-figure level and you're like, I want to build a community, I want to build the personal, I want to understand how to talk to that person of desire, this is where you and I have that conversation, because every single coach that I work with inside of C2C and that I work one on one with, these are people who are in the mode where they're at the teeter point. And all it takes is a few small adjustments. And most importantly, the right alignment behind these things to skyrocket to 2.2, 3.2 million, and then offset and create the team that is going to be able to build this business alongside you and, dare I say, without you. That's all for this episode. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.